So welcome everybody. I sure appreciate everyone being here. Okay, that's okay. So this is a webinar presentation about Epic Technology, our total water solutions. The website's at epictws.com, and that's more or less our main site that actually right now points to ecs-green.com, but epictws.com is the main site. And what EPIC stands for is the Environmental Passive Integrated Conveyance. So there's two different products that are available. There's the larger 4-foot chamber, and newly released this year we have the smaller 2-foot chamber that's half the width and half the length. And so this allows for the chamber to be able to fit in tighter spaces in smaller planters in urban areas, narrower trenches at edge of pavement for drainage applications, and it basically has the same drainage performance as the large chamber used mostly for irrigation. So it's a new and improved product, kind of like how Steve Jobs dropped the iPhone into a glass of water and said, "See the bubbles? That's wasted space." So we increased the efficiency. The system itself is comprised of a chamber and different pans or EPDM liner that make cells. So these cells connect together by gravity, similar to biology. So one cell will fill and then spill, fill then spill in sequence, and they're all installed on a laser level plane with half-inch tolerance at 90% Proctor density. So even though we have a level plane, we still can be able to keep up with drainage. EPD's online, but no sound on mic. Okay, great. I'm glad you guys are able to tune in. We can always do chat questions as they go on here. So the cells connect together in sequence. So a pan like this, for infiltrative reasons, could be similar to this picture we were showing earlier in the discussion for rain gardens and infiltration basins, to where really the importance is to be able to have the water introduced or captured by sheet flow and filtered through the EPIC system profile of gravel and sand. So by introducing water through the chambers, they all connect through the header pipe. Then the water can spread to each pan and wick up by capillary rise, and then be able to infiltrate in the spaces between the pans. So this allows for the water to be cleaned prior to infiltration or going to subsequent storage that will capture and use more water later. The other approach, if not pans, then is the EPDM liner cells. These are still EPIC cells, but they're much bigger, over 100 feet long. They come in rolls of 20 by 100, so these are 18 feet wide by, you can be able to seam the liner at any distance, so 98 feet long would be a typical biggest cell that we would work with if it's a 20 by 100 EPDM liner roll. You'll notice that we still do fold the walls upright, and this is to help contain the water so you can be able to see the progression of the water as it progresses across the field or EPIC area. And we'll show some other pictures of that working a little bit later. But that's just so you know that there's small pans to large cells. It all is the same, all in a laser level subgrade. So all the dirt that exists in the world, the different clay, silt, and loam combinations, there's lots of different ratios, but our exclusive choice is medium wash sand. It's ASTM F2396-04. But then we still test it for further drainage and capillary rise capabilities to make sure it'll work with the EPIC system. And the reason for that, when you look at all those dirts and clays and silt combinations under a microscope, they have kind of like a platelet type formation that really compacts the spaces in between the particles very tightly, to the point where not even air can move in between the soil particles. But sand particles are different. They're like miniature boulders. And so with that miniature boulder of 1 millimeter diameter average, you now have these void spaces that occur between the boulders. And that's what we take advantage of. That void space is crucial and key to good drainage and to an aerobic profile that has lots of air in between the profiles for the roots to be able to breathe. This makes a very, very strong profile for plant growth. So growing plants in sand is feasible as long as there is a water source available. And the way that we're able to make that connection from chamber to gravel to sand is the 8-to-1 ratio. If you look at these gravel particles, they're all in contact with the air spaces between each other, but then how do we keep the sand from falling in between? Well, the sand particles are chosen so that they have contact points with the gravel. It creates a bridging layer, or in some industries known as a choking layer. So there's no geofabric required to separate the gravel from the sand layer. So it's a very fine gravel of 1/4 inch minus. That'd be a ASTM C33 C number 89 that we use in the systems. Now this will vary. You know, if you have a different approved sand like we did in the Middle East, that was a smaller sand particles, so we ended up having to use a coarse sand instead of a fine gravel to be able to match that 8-to-1 ratio particle size. But the wicking of capillary rise is really the magic that occurs for most people when they see it for the first time. It's similar to a bounty towel as it wicks water off a spill on the table. Air pockets also do form in between those sand particles as the water wicks upward. So when you look at this profile, the patent to the chamber is these offset holes here. You can be able to see the holes on the inside are higher than the holes on the outside. And so that's how we can be able to block with this gravity trap the means from the sand or the gravel ever getting into the chamber. So the chamber now becomes our freeway, our path of least resistance for water to be able to travel through the connector pipes and decant as it fills and spills through each chamber. That then makes a saturated zone, about a 2 or 3 inch saturated zone at the bottom, which coincidentally is apparently what a lot of the codes are calling for, is these type of profiles with a saturated zone and a capillary zone. So as the water wicks up into the capillary zone, the roots are able to take from that moisture at their discretion, and they're also able to breathe at their discretion. So if you have a cactus, you have very shallow roots near the top, or a strawberry or turf would have very deep roots, seeking out the moisture down below. But with the predictability of capillary rise over a 7-day period, you can now also have a more or less dry crown zone. So this helps deter weeds from blowing in on the wind and germinating into the profile as easily during normal operations. So that makes it for more hassle-free gardening and landscape. So this is just a quick video example of how the capillary rise works. They poured water into the conveyance here. Now the video's not working, but you can see the image, I'm assuming. No, it's not playing, but anyway, technical difficulties, what can we do? So you can be able to see there's the 2-inch gravel layer. It wicks up into the sand, and it actually goes against gravity all the way up 14, 15 inches above the water line. So this makes the water then available for the plants to take from. So this moisture line here is only at about 6 to 7 hours. After about a day or so, it makes it all the way up to the top. And that video is also available on our website as well too. But here's a cross profile of the chamber. The roots do not obstruct the chamber. They treat it like a rock or an obstruction that go around. But they tend to not block the holes, because once they reach the saturated zone, they tend to rot and decompose away because there's no air anymore. They're underwater, and so that way they're able to not block the conveyance of the epic chamber, but proliferate up here in the capillary zone. And notice how clean the water is after being filtered, coming through that aggregate profile. So this is the root growth after only 3 months. No, I do not any longer fit into those pants, but the roots, do very well. That's only 3-month growth from sand-based sod. And the watering from the top actually can damage the roots. In this comparison of bean roots side by side of the sand profile, the one on the left was top watered. So you can see how it actually sheared and cut away at the roots, as the one on the right was watered by Epic, and that slow movement of capillary rise allows more root hair growth and more root development, making a stronger, more prolific plant. So that's where we like to say it's half the plant, twice the plant. Twice the plant, half the water. I had it mixed up for my own little slogan there. But half the water, twice the plant, and that's due to the afro root, as I call it, the expanded root zone that develops. Very important picture. This is also on our website here too under products. So this can then lead to small conversion kits, planters. These could be applicable, even on patios or high-rise apartments, to where the roof downspouts can then incorporate into small planters, even if there's a very small area. But even here in the desert in Reno, Nevada, we only water that once per week in 100-degree heat in August, and it's still enough to keep the plants happy. Raised garden beds also be able to apply, for agriculture or for decorative flowers. But basically, all the landscape can all be existing in Epic in this backyard. Underneath the pavers, the turf grass, the flowers, the shrubs, the trees, they're all growing within a 14-inch sand profile. And the roots just simply spread out laterally to accommodate the best growing conditions for the species. And you can even be, like I said, a base underneath the pavers as well, too. So this makes it very easy for the client for construction, because now instead of many different complex slopes and gradients, now you can just have one level pad for the whole backyard and let the landscape architect design what goes on the surface. But then you have the same common base for the water management underneath. So here's how it looks and how it works. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before, but I want to just go ahead and review. The chambers are connected by a 2-inch connector. In this case, you can be able to see there's kind of a common pipe or a header pipe that they all connect to, and they're resting on top of the 45 mil Firestone EPDM liner. And also notice how the roof downspout is connected to the chambers as well. The sandbags are just holding them in place so they don't shift during installation. And you can see there's a slot here in the drain pipe, so that's the final overflow once the entire cell fills up. And so that cell then is reusing this roof area as the irrigation source to reuse that roof water for the bicycle parking for the food co-op. This is in Minneapolis. And there was one time where they had a drought. They simply just put a garden hose down that same pipe, for once a week until it was fully charged and the grass stayed happy. But really, there's no, exposed drip lines, no sprinkler heads, nothing for animals to chew on or people to trip over. It's all nice laser level finished grade surface. So the way it operates in this case, there's a small vault, about 5 gallons is the smallest, that you can be able to connect a small pump about the size of your fist, maybe a 16th or a 32nd horsepower pump. That's set to an electrical timer to kick on once per week and recirculate the water up to the tall grasses, down through the turf, and then drain back to the vault. So that's one of these pipes here. When it rains a lot, there's a second overflow drain that then drains to the outfall of the property down a little bit lower there. So you do always have an out. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a closed system. But we're able to capture and hold 2.5 gallons per square foot in that turf area. So this is acting as a stormwater retention in the landscape. And then for adding nutrients, you can be able to just add the fertilizer or organic nutrients directly to the irrigation water in the vault as it's recirculating and subsurface recirculate that. You can add it to the surface like you normally would too. It'll just dissolve into the sand. But this gives just a second option to maintenance to help give more different options for them to be able to maintain these landscapes. Well, any size or shape can be accommodated. The only thing is all the roof downspouts directed towards the system. All the sheet flow directed towards the system. This is now your stormwater retention. So there's no longer a need for a storm pit or an infiltration basin. Now the landscape itself, it serves that function, holding the 2.5 gallons per square foot. In this case, in Palo Alto, they have a cistern underneath the Epic area, about 30,000 gallons, that they capture all the roof runoff from the planter areas and the roof areas and divert it underneath this turf area. So they're able to be sustainable simply from capturing and reusing their stormwater, and they don't need sprinklers or drip in that particular area. This is the same installation in Palo Alto, the Netflix. This is the Netflix guy. This is the Cisco Systems executive in Palo Alto, California. But not just turf can be able to grow in Epic. Trees, shrubs, plants, like I showed before. This Chinese maple was a 1-inch caliper when it was planted in the year 2000. It's almost 20 years ago. By 2007, it reached nearly a 7-inch caliper, and it was quite tall. You can be able to see how it just expanded and grew in that 14-inch profile. Here it is last year, so nearly 17 years old in this case, and the tree is still proliferating in that sand profile. 13 inches. It's 13, 14 inches deep at that time. So if you want to plant larger plants, there are options available. You can be able to see you can make a slightly deeper profile to accommodate the larger root ball. This is one approach. This was done here in this installation where you can be able to see it actually makes kind of a nice sitting area around the tree as you have a slightly deeper area to accommodate that root ball. The other option is to plant the trees adjacent to the system. So in this case, the pans, you'll be able to see the tree is right next to it, so the capillary movement can wick the water up over the wall and into the existing tree's root zone, or planted tree's root zone. And this is at the TCF Stadium in Minnesota. These are the trees about 4 years later. And we had an interesting visit where, of all of this turf area in the Epic, after a rainstorm, you don't see any runoff going across the sidewalk. I think over here that's just a little bit from sprinklers. That was near some of the other trees there. But okay. The sidewalk is tilted towards it, so that's what's left as it went into the system. But other areas around the campus that don't have Epic, you see the runoff going across the sidewalk. This is the installation in Vista del Lago. This was installed before we were using EPDM liners. That's why it's the pans on top of the visqueen. They wanted to be able to still conserve every drop. But notice how it's the purple pipe. So we were using recycled water to irrigate this entire soccer field. There's a 3,000-gallon cistern over by the maintenance field here that has the electrical timer on the building and a 3rd horsepower pump that then pumps water to the inlet header across the field that drains all the way to a drain header that goes back to the pump. So then it just recirculates. So there you can be able to see as the water is wicking to the surface, as it comes across the field slowly, laser level field, no crown. You can still see the Nike swoosh on the players on the other sideline across the way. We drill seeded with a Kentucky bluegrass, and it had germination within 8 days. Here it is at 20 days. Edge-to-edge germination, no hot spots whatsoever, even though it's a wind-prone area, being that we're wicking from underneath. There's no surface watering taking place. Here it is at 45 days with about 4 to 6 inch root growth and ready for its first haircut. And at 90 days from seed is ready for play. And then here's the same field about 7 years later. Now the interesting thing with this type of approach is using recycled water, so that the water connection fees are dramatically reduced. For sprinklers, at least here on the West Coast, it's a 3-inch connection in that town in Rockland was $750,000. We were able to reduce that to a 1-inch water connection, which is only $50,000. So we saved the client $700,000 right out of the gate before the field was even built, simply by requiring a smaller water connection fee. So this, I think, could be a key element to savings for clients when considering large park and large field areas that may require large amounts of water. That you can do it with a garden hose with Epic. So just one of the points for savings there. And the other point to look at is the quality of the turf. So here's the soccer field here at the Vista del Lago High School. And notice the ball field. So we didn't get that contract. This went to the sprinkler guys. But very windy up there. Lots of wind pattern loss. The main stadium is a synthetic turf. So you can be able to see how good the quality is with the wind pattern loss there, that sort of thing. Another field we're really proud of, and you can look at it from the satellite, is SMU in Dallas, Texas. It's a hurricane-proof field, I like to call it, because it can be able to take large amounts of drainage and still be a playable field. Here it is after a major storm. They're still able to practice their soccer. I think it was after an 8-inch rain event or something like that. All the other fields were flooded in the town, but they're still able to play here. Consequently, to be applicable towards the climate change mantra and that sort of thing, here's the same field during Texas drought back in 2011. This is the 100th day of temperatures over 100 degrees. So, the turf just compensates. It's in the profile. They can take that extra water and transpire it as needed to be able to maintain healthy growth. So whether it rains too much or rains too little, Epic can still be the quality conveyance of the water to be able to have premium landscapes. But a lot of that is due to the maintenance too. You can't just install Epic. You got to take care of it. It's not worth having if it's not worth taking care of. So one of those is key is core aeration, to be able to punch through the thatch layer that develops as the grass grows. So you have to be able to punch those holes through every season, and that gives you the opportunity to be able to add nutrients and balance out your profile. You have to make sure that the mower blades a nice sharp cut, so you don't rip or tear at the grass blades, which makes them susceptible to airborne diseases that can float in on the breeze and that sort of thing. And you have to operate the system correctly. If Epic's low flow, it's low tech, low flow. So if you operate it too quickly, you can reach the drain and go, oh yeah, it's filled, but you didn't give it enough time to fill the whole cell. That's why we recommend 1 gallon per minute per chamber row. And that slow trickle, that low flow at 24 hours once a week will then give enough time to fill the entire cell and spread throughout the entire area. The other aspect is nutrient balance. We highly recommend getting agricultural tests at these different facilities. It's the same thing that golf courses and professional sports fields do. You send in the sample, the sand or soil, to the lab. It's like $45, $50, and they'll give you a full report of all the nutrients that exist in the profile, and then the nutrients you need to add. And the essential nutrients are these 8 here. This is determined from Hoagland from Stanford in 1938. He grew a bunch of different plants to their optimum, picked the one that looked the absolute best, burnt it down, and analyzed the ashes, and that's how he came up with determining the calcium, iron, and all the different nutrients that are required for the ultimate plant growth. It's called the Hoagland solution, and you can look that up on Wikipedia, and we have more information on it as well too, because each nutrient has a specific function. So if you lack in one of them, the turf or landscape, will not do as well. But, and sometimes dirty water can be your irrigation source. The nutrients already in it. This is Westside Park in Los Angeles that was using this particular drainage cauldron, Bologna Creek, as the irrigation source, acting as a filter for the city of Los Angeles. So the system was installed on bench topography. The civil wanted to be able to keep the existing site slope. So instead of a laser level area, they did laser level benches following the topography. And we just serpentined the flow pattern from high point to low point. There was a very large existing tree there as well too that were able to wick the water up and over the wall into the existing tree's root zone, and this allowed it to be able to be irrigated from the adjoining epic system as well too. So that park was a collaboration between the sanitation, Parks and Rec, and also water and power, since it's using the land underneath their power lines. But it was a community solution to use that vacant land underneath. Now, they did over-engineer some of the aspects of that. They put in, I think, too large of a pump that then failed on them, that sort of thing. Nothing that was Epic's fault, but if you talk to some of the folks in Los Angeles, some of them were frustrated with parts of the project maintenance because Parks and Rec didn't aerate as they should. The pump was too big. So there are some issues that came up, but there are some good results that they got from the testing from that as well too. They found a 97% reduction in bacteria that was removed from that dirty water we showed you as a result of passing through the Epic filter. Another project that's a very nice example is the Cambria project. That was in 2004 on the central coast of California, right near the ocean, but it was up on a hill. And so they couldn't provide enough water pressure to irrigate, so they ended up irrigating with Epic instead. So they captured the sheet flow, and all the roof downspouts are connected to the system. So here's at this corner after installation. Here it is 11 years later. So you can still see it's a sustainable system that can last through the ages. And there's that same corner down there. And so what they did is all the parking lot areas, all the rooftop areas, the play areas, they're all harvested, all the surface areas, down to the lowest section of the campus, where underneath the main field they had 2 million gallons, or 1.7 million gallons of storage. This is in the ADS N12 5-foot diameter pipes underneath the field. And so they're able to capture the winter rains to reuse for summer irrigation. So here we are installing the Epic field over that reservoir. For large installations like this, we recommend using a telebelt-like system. So you simply are loading sand or gravel into the hopper, and then there's this guy here who's operating by remote control to swing that arm. I think it has a 100-foot, 150-foot reach or something. 130-foot reach. So, and there's videos on our website that show this being used as examples too. So this is a very efficient way to install the aggregate in large installations. But essentially, Cambria was given free water forever. I think they did connect a water pressure to it, but it's on a meter, and they've never used any water. It's a $7 million water connection or something like that we were able to help save them for that installation. Other installations that are applicable is your green roof installation. So this one's in Minneapolis. This was awarded Architecture Magazine's Home of the Year in 2003. On the 10th floor of this building that they revamped in Minneapolis there. And the interesting thing with that is that we have a mantra we like to say that zero-scaping wastes water. And that may come to a shock to some of you, but it's true. When you do the math, the xeriscaping really can waste water in the big picture of things, because you take a look at the cooling degree days and how plants transpire and create cooler air. So a typical air conditioner in the United States, in the western United States, they'll use about 3,300, 3,400 kilowatt hours per year, given the cooling degree days of, say, a 90-degree temperature. Now, if you have a lot of landscape outside, what's going on? What can be able to happen is that the temperature can be able to reduce. Oh, I see. I clicked on a link by accident. Let's go back to my presentation here. Another technical difficulty. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So if you have lots of landscaping and green wall, what can happen is that the extra transpiration, there's a study done in Phoenix that actually it lowers the outside temperature by up to 10 degrees due to the vegetated areas around the building. And so this could be a great way to be able to fight what the heat island effect, the urban heat island effect. And so now, instead of a 90-degree temperature, now you can be able to have an 80-degree temperature. This reduces the cooling degree days, and now you can be able to save electrical savings of over 1,000 kilowatt hours per year. Now, the reason I say xeriscaping wastes water, well, where does that 1,000 kilowatt hours come from? If it comes from like a hydroelectric area like Hoover Dam, that it takes a large amount of volume of water to create a kilowatt hour of electricity. I think the equation equates to xeriscaping may save 100,000 gallons in landscape use, but you're going to use 800,000 gallons more to create the extra power to run the air conditioner. So that's how xeriscaping can, in fact, waste water. So it makes more sense just to have more landscapes with efficient irrigation like Epic. This is one of the first LEED Platinum homes in the USA in Santa Monica, a green roof that was applied with Epic. This is a rooftop construction. Now, this is a retrofit, so they already had a slope to it. So we simply have the upright walls in strategic locations. You can see how the water pools up against the wall. So the water pools enough to still get contact with the high portion. So it might be 3 inches here and 1 inches there, but it's still enough to be able to wick the water up. And here they are installing the sand and installing the sod, and that's the finished green roof. And then after its second year of growth, you can be able to see you're making a park. And so all the condos actually sold out on the side facing the green roof because they had a nice park to look at outside their condo instead of the industrial area on the other side of the condo, which took a while longer to sell out. So this is another installation done by our distributor down in Los Angeles from LID Incorporated. This is the Da Vinci project in Los Angeles. It's a 5th floor podium green roof. So you can be able to see the larger trees are going where the orange square is here, and that's how they're able to plant the root ball and still to keep it within. I think it was a 20-inch deep planter in this case. But those are $10,000 palm trees that they're lowering down, and the landscape architect had some concern, but they were growing in quite well and looking good, and it's going now in its third year. So really, all in all, we can confidently say there is no water crisis. We just need to look at how we're doing things. What is it that we're doing that's wasting so much water? Well, there's a lot of runoff waste from sprinklers. It runs off and goes down the drain. Pressurized breaks that typically happen on Friday afternoon, but when everyone's going home, it gets your car all wet. Watering where things just don't grow. The wind pattern loss from the wind blowing over the concretes and such. And most importantly, especially to you guys there in the East Coast, is the infiltration basins, these storm ponds. They're a waste of real estate space. They are conducive to vector issues and spreading West Nile virus and disease through mosquitoes. And most importantly for the client, it's a waste of space. You're using a valuable real estate that could have been more homes, could have been a Starbucks, could have been whatever it is the client's building. So that's where it's the really poor performance. And it can be an expensive infrastructure. Large pipe is used. You have deep trenches. Hemet, California paid over $4 million to extend their drainage capacity a mile. So the answer's always been build it bigger. Oh, we miscalculated. We got to put more drainage in. And our philosophy is to build these epic storm sponges that can be able to help maintain the big flows before they become this big. So you look at curb and gutter, even though there's xeriscaping the rock, you still pick up a lot of the sediments that can overwhelm a system. Even in a 1-inch rain event, this was taken in Reno. Our philosophy is instead of that catch basin, which is about 3 square feet of openings on the side, What if you had pavers in the gutter? And was applied at Modesto Veterinary Hospital. That's over 20 square feet of openings if you count all the cracks in between all the porous pavers. Now there's porous concrete, there's other different pavers, but all of the sheet flow from the area is captured directly to the edge, and so that's our well, and then stored underneath. That's the next slide here. So underneath the parking lot is a 300,000 gallon cistern that they're using for all the landscape, the green roof of the entire facility. We even have a septic application on the other side of this building. Also, they've tapped into the cistern to be able to run a geothermal cooling through the walls of the building. So taking advantage of the natural cooling effects of the earth, kind of like being in a cave where it's typically 55, 60 degrees. That helps cool the water as it sits underneath the earth. So now we can be able to recirculate that cool water through the walls of the building. It's enough to help heat it in the winter above freezing, but it's also helps cool it in the summer when the temperatures are over 80 degrees outside. So it's another feature that can be able to help get lead points and just help you a logical way to build these buildings. So the numbers are all up to the engineers. The infiltration rate of the pavers. We know that the transpiration rates through the turf, anywhere from 0.1 to 0.15 gallons per square foot per day, depending on your climate and your ecosystem that you're near. The storage capacity in the sand is an average of 2.5, 2.6 gallons per square foot per day, and we know the rate through the connector pipe is 20 gallons per minute. So the numbers can be plugged for the engineers to do these new hydrological models. But the basic concept that we're trying to convey here is that you have your collection surface. We just need to add the filtration before it goes into storage. And that way you have a greater sense of that hydrological responsibility and not being caught with your pants down if you get too much water coming in at once. And you can be able to have a siphoning type system here. And what that is that siphon can be at a different elevation. But once the water fills to a certain elevation, you can then siphon it down to a desired elevation. And that makes you ready with a volume prepared for the next storm that might be coming in the next week or so during the different events. So this particular model, I think, especially applies to you guys there in the East Coast, to where these siphon systems can then release the storm over 2 or 3 days instead of all at once. And it's a nice filtered, slowed release, but you still have accommodations ready for the next storm coming in. But then you're capturing sheet flow, from the edge of pavement. You can be able to make these, green stripes in the medians and parkways, with a sand profile in the EPIC system. This is an application where we just did gravel to capture at the Nevada Department of Transportation headquarters in Carson City, Nevada. So along the entire perimeter of their site, they installed these pads with EPIC that are filled with gravel and then a very porous open grid paver on top. So all the maintenance facilities, all the crankcase drippings from the cars, the sediments, it all gets filtered through this system along the perimeter. The oils in particular were of concern to the EPA. And what we're able to do is the hydrocarbons from the oils, they float on top of water since they're less dense. And so what happens is that the interface to the chamber, the yellow line, is lower than the operating line, which is the blue line. That's the invert of the 2-inch connector. So because the oils float, they get captured in this gravel area above the chamber, and you now have less oils and hydrocarbons contributing into the final drain, from the system. So those hydrocarbons can then be broken down by microbiological degradation. Say that 5 times fast. But it's the bacteria and the microbes. They exist naturally. I mean, you can add them to the profile too, but they eat the oil. They break it down and back to CO2 and water, and that's a part of how the BP oil spill ended up not being as bad a catastrophe as they thought. Is that many of these microbes were eating the hydrocarbons and breaking them down. It's like a coral reef. City of Los Angeles has spec'd, not by name, but by practice, the EPIC system in its LID handbook. This is a similar practice that I think many other urban areas can be able to mimic. They've called it capture and use. It's right there on, I think, page 46 or so of their design manual. Also, we're consulting with the City of LA to help be able to use the system as a capture and use method for the medians and parkways, to where it can be a shallow type of catch basin, to where the street sweeper can be able to maintain it, so you don't have to dig it out. As the street sweeper comes by, it'll suck up the bottle caps, the sediments that are gathered in the storm grate, but then the excess water can then travel and have an observation vault to then be able to be reused in the parkways and medians after it's captured. And then if you really have the desire to be sustainable, you can then be able to have storage systems also underneath the parkways and medians. So now you can have a sustainable urban system that can be able to manage stormwater, clean it up, hang on to some of it, and then reuse it for landscape. But excess can still be able to drain out and connect to the existing stormwater infrastructure. But it's clean water that you're draining away. It's just a matter of creating a new water resource. So if you look at the edge of pavements with these types of designs with the epic chambers and the different storage underneath, now you can be able to have a new type of reservoir system. Let's see, similar to this. So with lining that system, we assume that the chambers might leak at some point, but now we can be able to keep every drop sustainable. And these Triton chambers, for example, there's Brentwood, there's Rain Store 3, there's ADS Storm Trap with a big concrete. So there's lots of different storage options available, but Epic is the key to pre-filtering any of those storage before you put it in. This next video is a video from I think it was a car chase in Florida. It's just our enunciation of what occurs on the edges of roads. Oh, I hope it plays. It's such a great video. Anyway, it's a car. He hits a ditch. He goes flying airborne. I can send it to you. It's not seeming to be working here. But moral of the story is ditches love cars. And what we are proposing is a new type of system along the edges of our roads that we can be able to market to departments of transportation and Caltrans as well there too, down in LA, to where you don't need the ditch if you're using these types of systems. So if you have an edge of road system, now you can be able to filter and manage and still convey the stormwater along the road right of way. But now you've got a new water resource. You got a whole new reservoir system that can be applied. If you look at the worst case scenario outside Las Vegas, they get maybe 4 inches of rain a year. That 90-mile stretch, the 60-mile stretch is missing out on 92 million gallons of water a year. That for free just maybe irrigates a few sagebrush and evaporates and becomes rain in Boston. And you can amortize that because it'll be good for a lifetime. You start adding up the numbers, and we really can have a whole new reservoir system in the right of way of our roads. The first acre foot you get in your first inch of rainfall in a mile. It really adds up. You look at all the roads in the driest state here in Nevada. We've got I think 7 inches annually. You add up all the roads, it's about 85,000 miles of roads. It's 600,000 acre feet a year. I think it's about half the size of Shasta Lake in Northern California. That right now is wasted and not being resourced, not being used. So the last quick thing I wanted to touch base on is agricultural applications. This is also a big marketing strategy for East and West Coast because it's not just landscapes you can grow it, it's food. So these are some of the tests that were done in the Middle East, where it's the most extreme growing conditions. So you can be able to see the building in the background as reference. In this case, we're recirculating from these inlet vaults, and then it comes across and recirculates back. There's that same building right there as they're growing these different leafy greens and different vegetables in the system. They tested many different systems. They found that the water use was 2 liters per square meter per day, which I think was 70% less than their drip system averages. The drip was 12 liters is their drip. So, yeah, we were 10 liters less per square meter. This is a greenhouse that was retrofitted as well, too, with kind of a row-type irrigation that they filled, with the red dune sand, planted 700 cucumbers. And then those cucumbers here's the growth, never irrigated from the surface. And here's the final growth. That's my friend Aham from Syria there. We were able to get 300% the crop growth, using 70% less water, and I think it was 30% less fertilizer. So here's a comparison. The Epic is on the right, the state-of-the-art drip systems on the left. They were really trying to beat us, and they couldn't. And you can be able to see the difference in the plants as well, too. So it's that, that Afro root I was referring to early in the presentation, how the root system is so much stronger in a sand profile. You can, in fact, yield more food from this system using less water. Half the water, twice the plant, like I said. And that's an understatement, because in this case, it was 300% the plant growth. They also did some tests for the sprinklers there, too. This is just getting to the final bits of the system. Compared to Epic, and the adjoining results were 78% less water in that extreme 130-degree climate sometimes. So it's a 100% efficient system. Another application that you can be able to consider, especially for you guys down there at APD in LA, is that the air conditioner condensation is a water source. In Dubai, it creates in excess of 5,000 gallons a day in some of these high-rise buildings. And many of the projects that are going into the ground now in LA are connecting the air conditioner condensation to the roof downspouts that connect to the EPIC system. Because during the hottest parts of the summer, the air conditioners are working the hardest, and that helps give us a little extra boost to those extra precious drops that help irrigate. This is another one that is off air conditioner only. So, I mean, you can be able to do it. It has been done. The most exciting aspect that I would really like to see move further around the world is saltwater irrigation. We've done it successfully. It can be done with propagating the local salt-tolerant plants. There's over 72 different salt-tolerant plants around the world, from post-pollen grass like this to mangrove trees, different flowering shrubs and flowers and such. But there's no salt buildup because as the system recirculates through the system, the excess salts that are extracted from the plant, they're able to dissolve back into the saturated zone and drain back out the sea. And we did this test, there in the Persian Gulf where it's the most saline tolerant, 5% compared to other, what's the 3% in most of the other oceans. So we actually had to put this fence up around the area because the gazelle that graze along the beach were preferring our salt plot. I think it's kind of like a Lay's potato chip. They couldn't have just one. They kept eating our grass, so we had to keep them out. So, but that's more or less our philosophy, is that instead of depending on taking water from ground flows or aqueducts that bring water from the north down to the south, we can be sustainable from the precipitation alone. The models have shown it. We've got projects in for over a decade that have demonstrated that if you store enough water on site, you can reuse it on site and balance nature. So fresh water is constant. It's just distribution is the problem. Everyone's going to have a drought at some point, but with using this technology, it can make it that much more versatile. And the way that we've spread out the distribution of the technology is similar to mimicking the EPA. So we have these 10 regions that are more or less. So we have LID incorporated down here in Region 9, handling California in the Southwest. I believe Aquarius is looking here at Region 3. So as the company grows and expands, these are the 10 regions of focus because these are more or less their own independent ecosystems and climates as well there too. So that's the presentation in a nutshell, and we're open to any questions that anyone has from what they've seen here and how we can be able to help. I think a good thing to go to next, too, is just to show on the website here how there's lots of features that you can be able to find on the website. And feel free to interrupt me if there's any questions that come through, or let me just check the chat here. EPD is online, sound but no microphone. So, EPD, feel free to type anything in the chat room or email me any questions as well that have come up. But on our website here at epictws.com, which points to ecs-green.com for now, there's many different things. How do we test the liner during installation? Well, we before the liner is rolled out, we make sure that the subgrade is absolutely laser level, that half-inch tolerance, 90% Proctor density. The liner itself, it's a 45 mil liner, so it should be relatively impervious. We try to take precautions of making sure there's no sharp rocks or anything protruding underneath. If there is in that case, if you're installing over such things, you can put a geofabric out first before you lay out the liner. As you're installing the liner, you wouldn't want to have no smoking allowed. If it does get penetrated from like a sharp object or sharp knife, there are patches that you can be able to patch the liner with as well too. So during installation, it's just best to keep track and observe the liner as you're installing it, making sure that there's there's no unwanted penetrations. And all the penetrations that do exist from the pipes are sealed with a conduit flashing. That spec sheet is available through Firestone, and I can send that to you guys there too.
Yeah, leakage concern is minimal because it's not a pressurized system. So even if you have a theoretical pinhole, you really have probably clay soils underneath, and a sand profile above it that squeezes that hole into very minimal leakage, even if it's a pinhole.
I have made solicitation emails that we send out to architects and engineers to get them to attend the webinar. I can be able to provide that to you guys. What our intent here is to do a webinar similar to this on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months, we can then direct new clients and new architects and engineers as well too to learn about the system. So that's what we want to be able to coordinate with you guys to where we can be able to host these on a quarterly basis for with your efforts. And I can be able to get you some of the flyers and your solicitation material to be able to do that. We'd be happy to do that. Also here, if you're ever showing someone seeing it for the first time on the home page, just down a little bit from the top screen here is I call it the Lab Coat series. And these are 4 videos, and we got Jonas. We recorded him in a lab coat, explaining, how the slitted pipe, does not work. And we can, I'll just hit play real quick. You'll see it's only like a few seconds.
My name is Jonas Shapila. I invented what we call the epic pipe. So when you have sand, which is totally dry or totally wet, it's going to flow like water. And very small particles are going to infiltrate the pipe. So here's my slitted pipe with a layer of stone around it. But if you put it in an environment that is sandy, look what happens at high speed. The sand particles, like pachinko, will find the smallest opening and start infiltrating the pipe.
See, that's the kind of pipe that everyone knows about, and that's what we can be able to replace. So ultimately, we are looking to be the next French drain.
It's common in ordinary pipe. Now, I mentioned that the particle has to be...
Right? You can be able to watch all these on your own time there too, but I highly recommend. It only takes about 5 minutes to see them all. But that's the Lab Coat series here on the website. There's also this video here that's a 3D animation that shows how Epic works. So this is a very good way to introduce people to the system as well too. Here's an article about the greenhouse that we installed there. There's a media section with the different articles. But most importantly, down here at the bottom of the site is this map. And this map is pretty cool. I've been spending a lot of time on it. There's still some more work to do. But if you click on the pins of the map, it'll show you the different installations and a little description about them. You can be able to see some of the different pictures and stuff of what these installations are doing. So I think that's a real fun way to be able to kind of tour all the installations that Epic has done over the years. I think we've even got the James Hunter Park in here too. Let's see here. Click that one. Now, I don't have. I need pictures of that one. I got to put pictures up to that one, but we still have have the installation date, how large it is, so you can be able to see some of the different installs that have taken place. Here it is.
I'll get pictures of James Hunter next time I'm down there.
Yeah, that'd be great to get an updated picture. But we've got some of the ones I think from install, and on our sites under the let's see here. I think it's under About. I want to change that About to Media, but we have a media section here, and there's a couple of James Hunter Park videos and interviews and media there too. So we got the media section. The install cost per square foot. LID Incorporated would be the best answer to that, but the parts themselves for Epic are about $2 to $3. Usually under $3, and that's for the liner, the pipes, the chamber. Then you have the cost of the sand. That varies between $3 to $6 per square foot, and then the cost of installation. I think the average costs that Mario's been doing for these small urban planters, completely installed, have averaged somewhere between $15 to $23 per square foot. A lot of this is depending on access and the size and that sort of thing. Larger fields, like the ones
also was done at 6.
That was over 10 years ago too. But we've seen the price per square foot vary anywhere from $6 or $7 per square foot up to $70. Given if it's like a very tall skyscraper where they have to use a crane to bring the sand up or something like that. But I think for areas above 10,000 feet, typically the price is falling somewhere between $10 and $12 a foot install. And for smaller planters below 10,000 square feet, it's a little bit more, getting up to almost $20 a foot there. So that's on a per project basis. The other fun thing is any information that you need on the resources here. We've got tons of white papers and information. The IECA paper is great. Road filter dynamics. This is where we did that in Lake Tahoe, and that kind of shows the same model that we're working on. Like I said, that I think could be replicated in all cities. Is where at the bottom of that document we are getting ratings. So I'll show you that we have a test rating for the sports field up to 10,000 pounds, and we're in the process of getting the H20 rating for 40,000 pounds. So we'll be putting that on the website as soon as that test is completed this spring or early summer. But here you can be able to see how the street edge of pavement is then captured in the catch basin with the grate, and then it can convert to the median on the other side. Close out of that. If you scroll down here under our spec sheets, you can be able to see here's our chamber loading test that was done. That shows how we took the 10,000 pounds. This is mostly for sports field reasons, that sort of thing. But we'll get the H20 stuff up there soon. We've got the spec sheets for the different vaults and the chamber spec sheets here. We do have to get Aquarius. You guys got to get up here into the certified contractors. We'll be working on that. And the regional distributor. And then AutoCAD details are also here on the site listed as well. And if you need to show even a whole other presentation, we've got one that we did to the American Society of Civil Engineers here by NDOT. So it's a whole hour-long presentation similar to what you just went through. So that's here on the website. You can be able to stream that anytime. But I did record this presentation we did here, so we will get that copy there to you guys as well. Last but not least, the blog section is what I try to keep most up to date on what we're doing, different meetings that we were attending and speeches that we're doing. So this has lots of great information. This is that Family Grows Up with Graywater. This is the first graywater system I think EPD installed there in Santa Monica with Andy Lauer. I'm pretty sure we mentioned you guys here too. I try to link everybody involved in these projects. So let me see here. Growing Up. Yeah, there's Andy Lauer's website. There's his kids. And stringent savings. Yeah, we talk about that, different stuff. Show the install pictures, Graywater Consultant Service. That's right, at Malibu too. That's right. I think you guys have mentioned there. Yeah, okay, that's Andy's website there. I know I have you guys linked somewhere. If it's not on this blog, it's on the other one. But I thought, yeah, there you go. There it is, EPD. See? Without asking, I hope it's okay. I'm advertising you guys too, right from our blog there. So, greenest lawn in Point Doom. Okay, I'll bet they are. That would be this lawn right here. So we called it cliff erosion control. There's the greenest lawn in Point Doom, and that was also the coolest installation too, because you could watch like the whales swim by while we were installing. And I believe they were able to triple the size of their turf area because they're using Epic. It's helping the cliff erosion. And this is real good sequence. I think Aquarius, you guys could benefit from this as well too, because we show the leveling, using the transit, laying out the liner, installing the system all through the phases, and there's lots of great pictures here through the whole process of the Epic installation. So this is the there's the cliff that we're helping protect. And I think you can scroll through all these like a slideshow kind of thing too. So we're, like I said, trying to add a lot to the website constantly. So any pictures of installations that you have, any information for projects that have been done, I'd be happy to put them up here on the blog and keep the content rolling, because that's what adds to the Google searches and helping get us greater exposure as we grow the company and build to this co-op of all of us working together with this fantastic business opportunity. So Yeah, like I said, keep me posted on what you can be able to send our way there. So the blog has lots of great information. It's a great place to peruse through and look through there. Oh, and another cool feature. Once again, here in the blog on the DaVinci, we've got this great thing where we can be able to show the before and after, with this neat scrolling effect. I think it's called it's a 2020 plugin. So that's a neat thing to show clients there as well too. That helps them visualize. Also, there's a nice video here. This Paradise Field. Our Horn actually went and got a drone, and they filmed the install from the air. And so it's a really nice video that kind of shows the process there too. That's the old field that they ripped up and tore up. So they excavated down the 16 inches, got it all laser level with their graders. They got their nice piano music and stuff. And now they're starting to install Epic. So there you can be able to see the liners rolled out, the chambers being placed on the liner. Now they're starting to connect them with the connectors and put the sandbags on top to hold them in place. And you can see that they used 30-foot cells here, so there's 5 rows per cell. So each cell is about 28 feet wide. And they seam them in the middle with a seam tape. So there they are loading into the hopper. You can see a little drone shadow there. And now it's the sand fill with the telebelt system. So they swing that out, spread that out. They wet the sand down for compaction. We're working on the side work there too. There's really red soils there. Lots of red clay in the area. Yeah, part of why that the field was not draining until they put the Epic in. So, as you can see, we have a real big team here. There's the finished field there, But yeah, I think we have a good website developing here. We have good partners that many of which are online with us right now, and really appreciate you guys being part of it, and look forward to moving forward with you here as we build this collective to help the water management of the future. And I think we really have a win-win product that can really be a great business opportunity for everyone to go make good money and do it with pride, because it's not like we're pillaging and taking from the earth. We're giving back. We're helping clean things up and make things right. So it's a feel good kind of marketing as well. So I really appreciate you guys attending. Is there any other questions I can answer? I want to go ahead and stop the recording for now here. I think we got enough content to be able to forward on. I think I